Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Good morning and welcome to the first session of today's theme on the pillar stage, which is Tech for All. What I would like to say is if you have any comments, please by all means put them in the comments box on the side of your screen. I'm Avril Lewis and I'm the Managing Director of Technology Connected, the network for the technology industry in Wales and the creator behind Wales Tech Week. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by a panel of influential leaders from our technology industry in Wales. And we're going to be discussing our experiences on breaking ground and smashing ceilings. And I make no apology for that title, as I think sometimes that's what some of us as females have had to do within this industry. My esteemed guests today are Louise O'Shea, the CEO of Confused.com, Stephanie Eden, Global R&T Operations and R&T Public Funding for Airbus Defence and Space, Dr. Laura Baker, Head of Product Management and Product Development at Tata Steel, and Sophie Broady, Head of Product Development of the DVLA. So a very warm welcome to you all, ladies. But I want to put today's discussion into context. Women are still in the minority in the tech industry. The representation of females in the tech sector still has a very long way to go before women are no longer considered to be the minority. A recent Tech Nation report that looked into diversity in the UK tech industry revealed that 77% of tech director roles are filled by men. And stats from the Tech Nation report suggest that only 19% of the tech workforce are women. And this figure is even less for Black and Hispanic women at just 3%, and for Asian women at 5%. Statistics like this not only make us question how we can encourage more women into the tech workforce, but also what needs to be done to be able to attract women into senior and leadership positions within the industry. Because both the workforce and board level still have significant underrepresentation. So before I come to my guests and ask them to introduce themselves and tell us about their experience in building their own careers in tech, let's hear from Louise O'Shea, the CEO of Confused.com.
Everybody, I'm so pleased to be here with you today, talking about equality, diversity, and inclusion. If you look at the title of my talk, talking about breaking ground and smashing ceilings, well, when I think about smashing glass ceilings, I always think of Virginia Woolf, a woman who broke the mold for so many other women to come after her. And I feel it's much the same in our industry. STEM is traditionally a male industry, but here I am and here are you, alongside so many more inspiring women. There's Avril, there's Sophie. We're all defying stereotypes and we're defining new ones and paving the way in STEM. It's really important that we can represent the people that we're actually providing technology for. It's important that we have, as women, a voice in an industry that is shaping the future around us today and the future of our entire world. We need to be a part of that, part of the innovation, the direction, the decisions that are being taken. There's a Tech UK report that shows that only 17% of the UK's IT specialists are female, 17%. There's also 600,000 digital tech vacancies in the UK. And worldwide, we're looking at a tech skills shortage running into the millions. So there's loads of opportunity and untapped potential of women out there to come into our industry, and we really do need them. In Wales, We have got an incredible STEM community. It really has started putting us on the map now. There are lots of national and lots of innovative companies that are being formed here, and they're choosing Wales for their home base. We've got organisations like Technology Connected and FinTech Wales, both of which are led by women. And we've got the Wales STEM Awards, which not only highlights our communal successes, but also draws attention to females who are succeeding in this field. But there's absolutely more to be done, more to inspire women to come and work in STEM industries. And that's a job for all of us, men and women, to do. We all have a collective responsibility to bring more women into STEM. The industry needs to achieve greater diversity, greater representation, and increase the talent that's in the industry. And that means that we all have to pull together to achieve it. But I'm not being very inclusive just talking about women. And that's because there's a whole different world of diversity out there. But I'm going to focus on women because that's been my personal experience, and it's been a particular ceiling and a fight that I've been having to break through and have. But there's a lot more to do around getting our whole industry to be accessible and welcoming to everyone. And the CEO of Red Ventures, a guy called Rick Elias, he's my boss, he hit the nail on the head in a recent diversity and inclusion report for all of Red Ventures, the group of companies that Confused.com is part of. And he said it needs to be I before D, inclusion before diversity. And if we focus on being inclusive, then diversity is the outcome of that. When companies and industries are equally represented across the spectrum, then when we normalize working parents, when we normalize LGBTQ people in working in senior positions, when we normalize blending different cultures in the workplace, when we normalize having realistic role models, that's when we'll have a really, really successful and happy workforce. It's going to create greater productivity, greater staff retention, a greater talent pool, and businesses are going to be more representative of our customers, and therefore we'll get better outcomes for them. And that's all great, and I think you all agree with me that that's a fantastic objective and goal for us, but how do we actually do it? So when we say that we need to create opportunities for working parents, we're saying that their circumstances of being a parent shouldn't dictate their potential. It's very important to have realistic role models, working mothers. I have 2 young children, people from all different generations. See that people are getting promotions regardless of their personal circumstances. All of that increases people's engagement and view that they have future opportunity in their companies and in the different workforce they have. When we create flexible, inclusive culture and we focus on becoming accustomed to the different needs of people, we create greater retention too. We have a course, an allyship course, that all of our staff will take part in Confused.com. And that helps to raise awareness as to how you can be somebody's ally. And it could be that you're in a meeting and there's somebody else who's an introvert in the meeting like you, and you can reach out and find a way of making them more comfortable in a big meeting. It could be that there's another working parent and you can share your tips as to how you've coped with your situation and your work balance. There's lots of other ways that you can be an ally, and please research that and implement that in your own organizations. Diversity creates a more skillful workforce. Gender, cultural, multi-generational diversity, it brings different skill sets, different experiences, different outlooks, different approaches, and that makes us more well-rounded. I always say businesses are successful when they have 2 things. They come up with good ideas and they make good decisions on them. And both of those 2 things need people from different backgrounds and expertises coming together and talking to each other. At Confused.com, we've got a book scheme that's specifically set up for our staff to educate themselves on diversity, inclusion, race, culture, and so on. The idea is that when someone orders a book, they can then circulate it around different team members. I've got an Ask Louise mailbox so that staff can email me suggestions on absolutely any topic but definitely the ones that are about making us a more inclusive company. And I don't have all the answers. The answers are there in your workforce. Just start talking to people, find out what the suggestions are, create the space for them to feel more comfortable speaking out. And that's what's going to drive real change. We're active members of the Tech Talent Charter, which exists to address inequality in STEM. And Stonewall, we're actively there as a role model for in their schemes. But there's still more that we can do. We can take inspiration from our brother and sister companies across the group of companies that we're in. But we also have focus groups specifically for women of colour, specifically for other diversity groups. We've hosted workshops to educate staff on their behaviours, be that identifying microaggressions, code switching, and prove it again bias. So we're trying to educate in order to enable individuals to understand when they're not being as inclusive as they could be. It's all about changing perceptions, and I think that's really interesting in the STEM sector, because the language that we use to talk about STEM, it can be quite lacking in inclusivity, and we need to be careful when we're talking about it, so that it's clearly not all hard hats and overalls, and the skill sets that we actually do need in STEM center around progress, breakthroughs, and curiosity. It's really about the ability to think and to dream, and everybody has the potential to do that. So I'm a big proponent that all of these different actions, they've got to start at home. They've got to start with you. They've got to start with you, your team, your company, but also that as an industry, we do need to work together to achieve true inclusion and diversity. And so that means aligning with organizations that are going to be able to help us come together. Technology Connected is a fantastic example of that. So think about collaborating with other companies, reach out to us, find out about our allyship training, look out for webinars, conferences, things that are going to help you to educate yourself and then educate your company. To make our industry accessible, we've got to also focus on the next generation. The girls and boys in school today, going through to university, we've got to reach out to them and explain what STEM is all about, raise awareness that there's no one clear route into STEM. And it's an absolute myth that you can't upskill and you can't cross-skill and you can't move into a STEM industry at any point in your life. So create that space for people to come into our industry. And we also need to break through some of those invisible barriers. So not feeling ashamed about being different and bringing a different perspective to the table. And don't ever feel afraid to say when you're not happy with something and you're not comfortable with the way things are going. If we do things the way they've always been done, then things will never change. And to create a better equality, to create better diversity and inclusion, we need to be able to question the way things are done currently. In fact, we need to do more than question. I'm asking you to act. Offer education tools to your staff, put on workshops, make your recruitment process anonymous to avoid bias. There's so many things you can do. And while it's absolutely fantastic to see that here in Wales, we are making brilliant strides. We have so many females in senior tech roles. We are welcoming more and more every day women into tech. We still need to make improvements, and that's a collective effort. It's on all of us. I'll leave you with final words from myself, which is the only wrong thing to do is to do nothing. So please take action and go and help another member of the STEM community and those outside of STEM to come into STEM. Thank you very much.
Well, I think there was some significant comment in there from Louise, and thank you very much indeed. Most definitely a key exemplar of somebody who is leading from the front, and as she rightly said, putting into action those thoughts and ideas that she believes need addressing to be able to attract greater inclusivity and diversity into not only her business, but also into the industry as a whole. So thank you very much indeed, Louise. And what I'd like to do now is to welcome my guests, and I'm going to ask each one of them individually if they kindly introduce themselves and then give us a brief overview of how they've got into their career and their career journey to date. Before, what we'll do is then come round generally to pick up some of those points that Louise has raised, look at the positive activities which are taking place, but also looking at what else needs to be addressed so that we can, change. We have to change for the future. And as we all know, actions speak far louder than words. So a very warm welcome, first of all, please, if I may, if I can ask Stephanie to introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks very much for having me, Avril. My name's Stephanie Eden. I work for Airbus Defence and Space, and I've actually been with Airbus Defence and Space for 22 years in August this year. So I actually started as a business graduate in 1999, which was Nortel Networks, and then we were bought out by EADS that became Airbus. A little bit of background, I did my degree in chemical engineering. Well, I did 2 years of chemical engineering and decided I couldn't design heat exchangers for the rest of my life and decided to change course halfway through. And I ended up in a technology management course at university. So I got my business grad role as in Nortel, and I did a rotation around the organisation for 2 years. And then, as I said, we were bought by EADS. And probably my career was just bubbling along. It was just, as a grad, you go and you rotate and you do work in a number of different areas, in marketing and finance, business development. But I was never in the engineering organisation because I was a business grad. Anyway, we set up a new program, was working with the military, and actually they needed a lot of operational analysis. And it was probably about 5 years into my career when the organisation changed, and I was greeted with a new boss who was part of the EADS corporate world, put it that way. And that's when my career really started to change, and I was given a lot more opportunities to grow and develop within the EADS community. So I then moved into what we call the System Design Centre, where we were working very much with, I was working very much with the military organisations to help them introduce their new technologies, so introduction of new capability. And I was actually managing a team, at that point, all women. So quite unusual, to be honest, in our organisation. There was about 8 of us, and we were all women working on these one topic. So we probably weren't diverse enough in the other way, if you like, or inclusive enough in the other way. But yeah, so I worked in that environment for a number of years, and then I was seconded to a programme which is known as Nightworks, which was down in Farnborough. So I was there for 2 to 3 years, where it was a Ministry of Defence and a industry partnership, pure industry partnership with the MOD. So you had ourselves, you had likes of GD, Thales, Kinetic, the big defence players, all working with the MOD in synthetic environments, experimentation to address any network-enabled capability problems that the MOD had. So I was there, like I say, for about 3 years. Then I came back into the Airbus community, and I was head of the enterprise architecture team at that time, and we did a lot of work with the Royal Air Force, again looking at the introduction of new platforms into the Air Force in the next 10 to 15 years, what that would mean to the infrastructure, how the amount of bandwidth that would be needed to support the launch of those new platforms within a number of scenarios. So again, I've been very lucky. I've been able to work quite closely with the customer and really have interesting jobs learning about different environments and how different people work. I have a daughter. She is nearly 9 years old. So in 2012, I went on maternity leave. And I came back in 2013 to an organisation that had reorged. So I basically really didn't have I had a job, but it wasn't the job I had left. Okay. And it was very much integrated with the Europeans. So France, Germany, Spain, we were all being integrated into this one organization, which was great. But I was a new mother coming off maternity leave, going back into work full time. And I wanted to have a purpose of being in work. Otherwise, for me, if I wasn't doing something valuable, I might as well, not to say my daughter isn't valuable, but I needed to have that valuable element in work to justify to myself why I would leave her in nursery, if that makes sense. So I went to my boss, and I was quite disappointed and said, this is the situation, tell me why I should stay. And luckily for me, they let me rant, and then they gave me a position as the head of the System Design Centre for the UK. So I'd moved from being a team lead, and they gave me that faith to head up the System Design Centre in the UK. So that was managing a team of solution architects, enterprise architects, and I had order intake, there was cost centre responsibility. So quite a leap from what I was doing before, but they put that faith in me, and I'm thankful for them for doing that. And that basically leapfrogged me then into a number of different roles. I've had, I managed 80 engineers across the France, Germany, Spain, UK perimeter under system engineering activities, into then being the head of innovation for the communication intelligence organisation within Airbus. And then I moved into the R&T community, which is where I am today, where I am responsible for head of external funding and global R&T cooperation. So working with universities to develop technologies that are at a low technology readiness level, or working with universities where we don't necessarily have the skill set or we're lacking in that skill set, and the universities have that capability. And the external funding is really working with government bodies, addressing technologies that they want to develop and that we need for our future products. So I've got, again, a team in France, Germany, UK and Spain. So working through the pandemic hasn't been too much of a change for me, because I don't know, I don't see my team on a regular basis anyway. We did before, we did travel, but the situation with the remote working has not been so impactful because of the fact that my team is all over the place. But yeah, that's a quick introduction to me and where I've been and where I am now, if that's okay, Avril.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And there's some very interesting points that I want to pick up when we come together as a collective, and that's namely working for the same organisation for 20 years. Also, the fact that you sort of switched from what I would call is, business in, an extrovert type of normal stereotype to, engineering, which sometimes is a introvert stereotype. So I think there's some very interesting points that you pick up there that I'd like to address, if I may, when we come back as a collective. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on, if I may, and ask Laura Baker, please, Dr. Laura Baker of Tata, if you'd like to give us an introduction, please, and give us your whistle-stop tour of your career as well.
Hi, Avril. Morning, everyone. Really, really great to be here this morning. Really proud to be able to join this event. And I so much of what Stephanie and Louise have said already resonates really strongly with me. But give you a bit of my background. Like Stephanie, I've been with Tata, was Chorus, was British Steel for all of my career, which is also almost 20 years. And I've always worked in STEM. How did that start? I was one of those kids that just loved taking stuff apart, much to the dismay of my parents. So I was always into, what makes things work? Why does this do this? And how do we make it better? And that was a real fascination for me. So it was kind of inevitable that I would go into engineering. What I would say, though, is that as a youngster at school in the 80s at the time, it was still fairly unusual for girls to be into maths and science subjects. And looking back now, I realise how important it was to my career that I had a teacher that recognised that ability in me and pushed it. And I think Louise said it earlier about how important it is to talk to the younger generation. And certainly that was my experience, is that, had it not been for that one teacher who suggested to my mother that I should go to a girls' school so that talent would be supported and developed, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I might be doing something equally interesting in another field, but I probably wouldn't be doing it in engineering. So I think that's a really important part of certainly my story was having those teachers. And then, you know, as typical for STEM graduates, I did science, A-level science, GCSEs, and then I came to wonderful Wales to do my degree at Swansea University in engineering, materials engineering, and stayed on to do a doctorate in engineering, which was sponsored by British Steel at the time. People who know Swansea know that if you do engineering in Swansea with the steelworks visible from the site, it's fairly difficult not to get involved in the steel company in some way. It's such a huge influence on the area. So I did that, and that was like a 4-year interview, really. The companies knew what I was like, I knew what the company was like, and then I was very fortunate to be offered a permanent role when I graduated nearly 20 years ago. So since I joined the company, I've done a lot of different roles, and one of the advantages of being part of a large organisation like Tata is that you can stay within one organisation but have many different roles, and I'm sure it's very similar for Stephanie and Airbus and others. So it feels like you're having a portfolio career but working for the same organisation, which is lovely. So I started off working with customers, so really working with them in terms of understanding their challenges with our product and how we could help them become more efficient and use our product in a better way. I then moved into product development, working very much in terms of developing the next generation of products for our company. And then I took a bit of a diversion in my career and became part of the supply chain management team. And I led a pan-European transformation program, where we implemented a whole new technology platform for supply chain management, which was my first real foray into supply chain, and particularly supply chain tech platforms, and it was a really great experience, and worked with lots and lots of great people and suppliers in that space. I then became the technical manager for one of our sites in Newport, which again was a lovely experience, a smaller site, and different experiences in a smaller site than the bigger ones. Get much more involved in everything on a smaller site than you might on one of the larger ones. And lots of opportunities, and travelled all over the world, which was great. Again, as a female, that can be quite challenging, and certainly I can remember trips to Asia in particular, where, you know, travelling on your own in Asia is seen as quite odd, and I would often be asked, well, who's with you? And I'm like, well, no, I'm on my own. Oh, so there's no one accompanying you, and that particularly in the Arab states is quite strange, and got a few funny looks, but it's all, you know, all part of what's got me to where I am in my career today. And then in 2015 I had a baby, which was a bit of a surprise, I have to say, but really changed my perspective, I think. Up until then, I had been doing the traditional macho, working 16 hours a day, not taking any holiday, on call all the time. Work was the biggest priority. And then I had a baby and realized that, no, actually, do you know what? She's my biggest priority now. And much like Stephanie said, that doesn't mean I don't want to do something really valuable at work. I do, and my career is still a really big part of me, but not at the expense of everything else. And that was a really great learning point for me, which I wish I'd had earlier in my career, because it taught me that there is more to life than work. And actually, when you put work in perspective, in my experience, you're much better at it, because you get less emotionally involved and you're able to be a bit more detached, and able to make better decisions, I think, than when you're kind of in it and it's really pressurized and you can't see the wood from the tree. So for me, that was a great learning point, that you can still have a really great career, you can be a really great mum and wife or partner, whatever your circumstances are, and have a really great career. But you don't have to work 60 hours a week. You know, it's okay to say no. It's okay to finish work at a sensible time so you can put your child to bed. And it's okay to take some holidays so that you can spend family time. And the world didn't stop. You know, when I started going home at 5 o'clock, the world didn't stop. It was amazing. So that was really good. And now my daughter is 6, and she's really interested in STEM as well, which I obviously try and encourage with her. I'm currently head of product management and product development for Tata in South Wales, which means I lead a team of around 25 engineers who are really busy making the best of our products and developing new ones for the future. And they're a really great, motivated, fantastically intelligent bunch of people, and it's a privilege to be able to lead them. I'm also proud that probably about 35% of the team is female, which is really good, and we try and promote that. And I also feel that I have a responsibility now to be a bit of a role model for those that are coming through the organisation now, and show that you can do these things. You can be a senior woman in industry, in the STEM industries, and you don't have to sacrifice your family. You don't have to be a man to do it. You can still be feminine. You can still be a woman, and it takes all sorts to make a successful business. So hopefully people coming up behind me will have some more positive experiences and be able to take it even further. So that's a whistle-stop tour of me.
Thank you, Laura, and we'll come back to some of those points that you raised there as well. And finally, I'd like to introduce Sophie Broady.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you all. Honestly, listening to the ladies that have just gone before me, getting a little bit of imposter syndrome. Why am I here? So currently I am head of product development at the DVLA. When I left university, would I ever have imagined I would have a career in technology? Definitely no. I think the stereotypes of what someone was who worked in technology were very clear, and that wasn't me. When I graduated with a bunch of friends who knew exactly what they wanted to do. They all wanted to be solicitors. They all are solicitors. They're thriving in their careers. And I kind of sat there going, I don't know what to do with myself. I've got a career. I've got a degree in history. Where do you go? Definitely didn't want to be a teacher, which seemed to be the path of most of my peers. So I kind of just sat back for a little bit and scratching my head, doing kind of casual work, trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I ended up just taking a graduate trainee position in a financial services firm, just to get some progression, some movement forward. And I guess from there on, I would always describe my career path as being completely opportunistic. It's never been planned. I have full adoration for the people out there that can put 5-year plans and strategies and clear career goals together and know exactly where they want to be. That's not me. I just seize opportunities as they present themselves. So I took the graduate trainee role in financial services. I was working for a firm specializing in financial advice and mortgages. And I really enjoyed the mortgage element of things and the different roles. Being the youngest in the office, every time there was new software, it was like, Sophie, please do this for me. And I really enjoyed kind of that side of things as well. So following that, I became a mortgage advisor. So I moved between Barclays and then HSBC. And it was actually HSBC that gave me my first real opportunity. I'd been a mortgage advisor there for nearly 2 years, and loved the company and just the opportunities it would create for people. I was looking on the job board one day and they were looking for people to do a 2-year secondment working on their mortgage transformation program. So they were looking for people that understood mortgages, understood how they sold mortgages, and to provide their, I guess, SME experience to help them build the new system. Well, you know, I've kind of done the mortgage advisor job. I've got that in the bag. I know what I'm doing. Let me try this new opportunity. So I applied for it. Really fortunate. I got the role. It was an incredible experience. And such a steep learning curve in terms of learning so much more around a head office operation, and also then interfacing into a technology team in terms of designing the system. And that was going from kind of being an SME, helping design the UK's first online mortgage application system, all the way through to moving through the different kind of elements and roles that there were and getting to understand it in a lot more detail. So I was on that program for a good few years, and it's really interesting for anyone that is in technology, kind of taking it from kind of a very old way of working to a very modern way of working. And I think some of those preconceptions 20-year-old me had about working in IT or working in technology and what it meant were completely blown away. Is that whole, I think Avril mentioned it earlier, the expectation that you're an introvert to work in IT, when actually, when you look at the type of role I do, which is very product ownership and working in agile software development teams, communication is everything. So I know I love talking, as you can hear, and that ability to, I guess, use one of my core skills in a technology industry and kind of take away some of those preconceptions about what it meant to work in IT was really eye-opening as an opportunity there at HSBC. So it was my real first taste of being a product owner, which, for those who don't know, is very much about kind of being the voice of the business, voice of the customer, balancing it with the IT needs, really creating the vision for what you're trying to achieve and working with the very, very clever software engineers in terms of building and testing and deploying it. And it's just such a varied role. It really kind of was a hook for me into what I thrived on. So I was there for a good few years, and I decided I was kind of ready for a change. There was a lot going on in HSBC, and I'd, for whatever reason, decided to always live in Swansea, even though my job would have me pretty much anywhere in the UK on any given week. So whether that was head office in London, our IT teams in Sheffield, our contact centres in Leeds, or the Marks and Spencer subsidiary in Chester. So it was a brilliant thing to do in your 20s, live out a suitcase, eat out all the time, lots of socialising. But I kind of made the life choice. Maybe I wanted to be a bit closer to home too, and to maybe having suffered from, I'm sure some of the other women here have, handbag shoulder, and having to have quite a few treatments for having a very heavy handbag and carrying a wheelie suitcase behind me for a good few years. Principality were looking for someone to come and work in their technology teams in a similar kind of product owner way, but building out that business representation into change so that the business were engaged, that we were getting actually value for customers, what customers wanted, what the business wanted, what end users needed. So I was actually ended up being at Principality for nearly 8 years. And for some reason in my career, I've never kind of managed to escape mortgage transformation till now. I ended up, my last role with them was working on their mortgage transformation program. So in the product owner space again, managing that team of product owners, working with third parties to help to integrate a new piece of software and develop out our own internal capability. So brand new platform for our customers, our users, our brokers to be able to transact on kind of mortgages in every aspect. So whether it's a new one, changing your rate, that kind of thing. So that was such a rewarding time. I've learned loads in that. And it was almost then I was at a point in my career, again, the opportunity at the DVLA came up, and I thought, you know what? I've kind of really confident in my abilities, I think, to be a product owner, really understand the job, but I've just been pigeonholed in this mortgage transformation bubble for the last, I don't want to admit how many years. And this was an opportunity to work in a public sector role with some really kind of forward thinking people in terms of the technology we use, the ways of working. So it's just an exciting experience. So I thought, let's go for it. So here I am. And I guess that's, as it has been the theme, it's not been about being planned. It's been around finding the opportunities that excite me and kind of grasping them and not being shy. I think, I reflect back, I could have quite happily stayed as a mortgage advisor and not taken that secondment. There was lots of reasons why it was scary. It was a completely different type of work to what I was used to. It would be traveling, it would be working with new people, but it was that I always have a mantra and I always try and stick to it, which is to take the risk and to think, what is the worst that could happen, and not, and really start to think about, the probability of something, even if you took an opportunity you didn't enjoy, just take another opportunity. There's always a way to move forward, rather than standing still and kind of doubting yourself so much that you don't seize those opportunities.
Okay. Sorry.
It's me in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think I'm going to try that from the three fascinating stories that we've had there. I pick up some very core threads. And I think what's interesting is that nobody has gone on a particular, straightforward trajectory. What we've seen on the career paths of our three panelists today is that what I would call is, seizing the opportunity to gain additional skills, gain those additional experiences, which wouldn't necessarily fall within that straightforward trajectory on your career path. So I think that's particularly interesting. Also, you've come from large, or you are in larger organizations. I'd like to pose the thought, what advice do you think that you would give young women who are in smaller organizations for them to be able to get to the top, to develop their careers? Do you have, and I'm going to go for one sentence each because I know we're women and we love to talk, so I want to get through quite a bit. If I could sort of come to you, Stephanie, what advice would you give to individuals who are in smaller organizations with regards to building their career?
I think a key element for me, sorry, I know it's not one sentence, I will do it as quickly as I can, is I think whether it's large or small, all our organizations have a system, like a development system. And I think you need to understand that development system. That's half the battle. If you can understand how the performance reviews work, the purpose of those performance reviews, it's not just about pay, it is about your future development. And if that isn't happening in a smaller organization, then how can you contribute to that happening? How can you influence that? Because that isn't just for women, that's for everybody. Everybody should have that performance activity, because it is, for me, it is about that growth. It is about what do you need to do to get the next experience, really. So for me, I think it's understand the system that you're working within, to be honest, to maximize your benefit within that. So
okay, thank you. Laura, you come from what is traditionally a very male-orientated industry. It's big, heavy steel. Can't get away from that. You said some fascinating things there about you don't need to act like a man. And I think understanding, if we could, as women, describe our unique characteristics and how they can work within, what has to be a totally inclusive environment. How do you go about that?
I think it's really hard, actually, and I certainly didn't get it right to start with, and I'm probably, we're all a work in progress, aren't we? I'm probably still learning. So I think, we were talking before the show went live. I think you have to have role models, and certainly for me, coming through my career, there weren't many, if any, female role models in the STEM areas. So I had to kind of make my own path. And some of that was, when I was younger, was like, I just have to fit in with the crowd and the macho culture and working all hours and being quite aggressive and, all the kind of stereotypical steelworker type traits. But I was so uncomfortable doing it. And it made me so stressed trying to be somebody that I actually wasn't, because I felt that I had to fit in with this culture. That as I kind of grew in my career and became more senior and more confident in my abilities, and started getting, you know, that feedback from my own successes, but also, you know, from other people, and got that confidence, I started just testing it a little bit, you know, started being a bit more myself in certain contexts, and found that actually I got a much more positive response. And now I build on that. And there are still times when I'm not really myself, and I still have this sort of shield, if you like, that I put on. But in the main, I try and be much more myself now, and I get much more positive response from that. But yeah, it's hard, and I think you've got to have that trust and confidence in your ability. And I think the other thing I found invaluable in that is having sponsors and mentors throughout my career who I could really trust, and would give me that really honest feedback in a safe way, and that I could just bounce stuff off, and that's been invaluable as well, and something I would recommend for anybody, you know, male, female, whatever, is to have that sponsor and or mentor that helps you through that journey.
Okay, thank you. No, we, you know, as senior figures within the industry, we know that all of our organizations, you know, within the industry are facing talent shortages. As technology becomes far more ubiquitous, you know, throughout everything that we're doing, the demand for technology skills and technology people is only going to accelerate. It is not going to diminish. For our organizations, you know, it's absolutely essential that we get on board with understanding and adopting and, you know, driving forward, having completely inclusive, equal and diverse organizations, because it's not a add-on. If we are going to attract the very best, and we're going to be able to have a workforce which is able to listen to and adapt to our customer needs, we need to be able to reflect our customers. So as senior figures within your organizations, you know, what are your organizations doing, and what roles are you specifically playing to be able to help change and drive forward that ability to attract new talent into your companies? Can I come to you on that, Sophie, and then I'll wrap back round to Stephanie?
Yeah, of course. So at the DVLA, it's absolutely a key agenda item for us. So there's a few things that we're doing. So we have a number of development programs that we launch throughout the year, which are very much at different levels. So some of them are people with zero experience. So actually, you know, one of the things we're really keen to do is get individuals from other parts of the DVLA, so whether customer kind of a contact center operations, and give them a development path so they can become a software engineer, a business analyst, a software developer, and kind of test engineer, all these opportunities. So we've got these brilliant development programs that the teams have been designing to take people from kind of no skill, no awareness, all the way through to being kind of fully qualified in that field, and providing that support, the coaching, the qualifications that go with it. And equally, graduate schemes for those with a bit more experience in place. And then we have a advocacy group called Digital Voices, which we run, which is very much about getting inclusivity into our technology and digital teams. So that is broader than gender, but getting that real diversity. To your point, we need it. We need it for making the right decisions. And also, we have a diverse number of users and diverse users. So therefore, we need the diversity in the teams that are creating the solution. So yeah, it's all that group is very much focused on that, paired with the development programs that we've got in place.
Sure. And Stephanie, you know, multicultural across, you know, many European facets. What's your experience of what your organisation is doing there?
So we have quite a lot of inclusion and diversity activities. So we have an inclusion and diversity board at the very highest level. And we also have a number of programs in place. Diversity and inclusion is like a top-down target. It's for everybody to, so it's ingrained in the organisation. But we also have a lot of programs to do diversity. I was on one a couple of years ago called the My Way program, and it's my program actually had 8 women and 2 men, and it was all about mentoring. And we also had, believe it or not, a gold world champion cyclist giving us coaching. So I had to go to Toulouse once every 2 weeks, and we used to do a number of exercises in this field. But at the same time, we'd have a lot of body and mind coaching as well. It was all about how you navigate your world as being a female in the workplace, you know, with family or not with family, and how you manage all of these different things that life are throwing at you whilst working at the senior positions. What that is also doing is it's a big network. So there's a whole network of My Way community. And so it's all about that network and how you link to the different networks in the organisation, because for a large organisation like ours, the network is quite strong, and that's how you also get opportunities to grow. So it's taking advantage of that support network as well to see what your opportunities can be. But yeah, it's quite active within our organisation.
Okay, thank you. I'm picking up some key threads here, you know, for people to be able to get to the senior levels. Is, you know, we need more role models, and I have 3 fantastic exemplars sitting in front of me here. So, you know, we need role models. We need to have that support network. And I think, and you may shout me down on this, but I don't believe that network has to be totally female. I think, you know, exactly. We work in an inclusive world. You know, we don't work in isolation. We don't work in necessarily all female environments. We have to be able to make sure that we use our own unique skills, characteristics within the whole. So, you know, have that supportive network and use that supportive network. And I think as senior leaders, it's our responsibility as well, though, to reach out. And I think, you know, the higher we go up the levels, the more reaching out we need to be doing. So, you know, if you were now looking to address yourself, or I'm going to ask yourselves to put yourself in the position of, let's say, you know, a young person, and I'm not saying male, female, but a young person wanting to embark on a career in tech, what would be the advice that you would be looking to give them? And then I'm going to wrap up with just picking up those themes and concluding our discussion for today. So I'm going to come, because of the way I see it, I'm going to go to Sophie. Sophie, if you were going to go in and talk to 14-year-olds, you know, and give them 3 points to take away, what would you say?
So first, build your network, get your mentor. I think that's so important. We've talked about it, role models, having someone that you can have as a support. The second really important one, which for me is contribute. Don't sit there biting your tongue because you're too scared to talk. What you have to say is important. Say it. And thirdly, don't disqualify yourself. You know, take those opportunities and believe in yourself, because if you don't, no one else is going to.
Interesting, because when we were talking at the beginning, we also said, do we suffer from imposter syndrome? And I think it's something that, you know, inherently we do have that sort of lack of confidence, and sometimes we do have to drag it out, don't we? We do have to be confident. Stephanie?
I think I would say that don't be afraid to change. You know, embrace the change, and if something isn't working for you, then find something else. Like Sophie said, you know, there's always another opportunity. So embrace that change, and be brave. You know, the world is full of opportunity. Be brave and have your voice heard, basically. So
thank you. And Laura?
Oh, well, I really agree with all the things that have already been said. But I guess to add to those, I would say, you know, it's okay to ask for help. And actually, in my experience, lots of people really want to help you if you ask for it. I've already touched on it, but be yourself. Don't try and be somebody you're not. It's exhausting. And really, the third and probably most important is really the only thing holding you back is yourself. So, echoing what Stephanie and Sophie has said, if you want it, go and get it. You're entitled to it as much as anybody else. So be brave, as Stephanie said, and go and get it.
Thank you. I think incredible stories that we've heard here. I'm going to go around the table again because I do want to pick up that life isn't a bunch of roses. So very quickly, give me an obstacle or a challenge that you've had and what you personally did to overcome that in your career path. Sophie, can I come to you on that one?
Yeah, so I won't name the company, but I was told when I first started out that because I didn't have grey hair and I wasn't male, no one would take me seriously. That really lit a fire in me. So I think no matter what people say, it's their opinions. Don't let them hold you back. Have that faith in yourself. It's too easy otherwise for you to be what other people want you to be, not what you want to be.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Stephanie?
I think it's how you, for me, I think like Sophie's just said, if someone tells you, I see it more as a challenge rather than an obstacle, really. So it's more of a, okay, you have that opinion. This is, and like I say, speak up. This is how I see it. Someone once said to me that me and my team were a bit pink and fluffy, and I gave my response, and that was never spoken about again, really. So I think it's just, okay, some people are not as PC as others, but it's, I don't think people say things sometimes to be detrimental in some, it's just
No.
I think you've got to consider that, but also demonstrate what you think about that position. So, yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, well, similar to Sophie, I had one particularly enlightened member of the industry who will remain nameless say to me when I was pregnant, and said, well, of course, that's the end of your career now. And I took a bit of a step back and thought, oh, okay, that's a first. And I was just very determined that I wouldn't allow that to become true. And, I've already talked about how having a baby changed me, but my career is probably the most successful it's ever been. And I am the most comfortable in my career than I have ever been. So, I'm just very glad to have proven that individual wrong.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to sum up because really interesting conversations here, and I think some key facets coming out, and it's very much about be yourself. You are your own individual. Take the opportunities. Carpe diem, as they say, isn't it? Seize the day. Don't feel in any shape or form that you have to follow one path. And we're finding this all the time, particularly with technology, which is disrupting everything that we do. And I think, as we grow, we realize that you can go and take a different path. You don't have to be pigeonholed. And I think that is great inspiration to be able to give to young people. Let them have the aspiration that really, in today's world, and particularly now with remote working, the world is, as somebody used to say to me, your lobster. It's not, the world is your oyster. You can go and take those opportunities. As senior figures, we do have to reach out. We do have to be inspirational. We do have to be able to work with everybody, for everybody. And I think, the more that we get individuals like yourselves positioned, profiled, working, talking, the more everybody will see there are these opportunities. And we are only a nation of 3 million people. We need to be able to stand up and everybody have those opportunities. But I think fundamentally to realize as well that you can build senior careers in tech right here in Wales. And you can have global opportunities from right here in Wales. And you can also be working with, the leading edge, latest shaping multinational organizations, big public sector organizations from right here in Wales. So I think, for youngsters coming through, I do hope that they look at what you've been doing today and be able, to reflect on that and say, yes, I can do that. I want to be like Laura. I want to be like Sophie. I want to be like Stephanie. Because a little word of advice, my careers teacher told me to be a librarian. So, we've all had our challenges to face along the way. So on behalf of everybody at Technology Connected, I would like to say thank you so much for what's been, I wanted to call it, girls at the coffee table, but we couldn't because we couldn't physically get together. But it's been really, really interesting. Thank you, Stephanie, Sophie, and Laura. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.